Welcome to Conversations with Garmamie. This is episode 12. Our guest is Lewis Hill.
Yeah, I've worked in the film and television industry since 1999 after graduating from Algonquin College.
He's worked on everything from news to reality TV series to web series and everything in between. Halfway during this entertaining interview, he tells me the following.
Technically speaking, shooting, editing, I am not the most technical editor or shooter. But I'm not afraid to ask questions of the best people and train with the best people. And I think that helps me keep my creativity alive and well. So I will think of what I want to do and then figure out how I'm going to do it. Be it an effect, a slow motion effect with a light going through it, or you know what I mean? Like some sort of motion tracking thing. I will think of it and then contact the right people and get them to explain how to do it. Or Google. So, I think storytelling is more important than being technical, particularly in the information age.
The topic of this conversation is about visual storytelling for combat sports and the significant role storytelling plays in framing the athletic competition, but also in further marketing and promoting the sport and its competitors, be it mixed martial arts or any other combat sports, to a broader and mixed audience. But first thing first, here's a snippet of a song Lewis wrote and performed as part of one of his web series. The song is called Cross Train.
Quit your job and get a divorce. It's 9 a.m., drink beer of course. Still not dressed, it's 10:15. What was this song about again? Oh yeah, cross train. Cross train, baby. Cross train. Cross train, baby. You wouldn't have a smoke without a drink. You're training for a race, here's what I think. It ain't like putting a man on the moon. It's easy as singing in Hard O2.
Who right now is your favorite mixed martial artist?
I have a lot. Cowboy Cerrone, obviously, because he's it's not just that he brings it, he's a technical fighter. He's technical on the ground, he's technical on the feet. I love a technical fighter. I also love Conor McGregor because he can hype himself. And like I said before, when I watch as a fan and I get sucked into all the hype. So I really want this guy to win. I think he's fantastic.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
I'm a huge Star Wars dork, so I like all the Star Wars movies.
Nerd.
I'm a huge nerd, and Star Wars is kind of what got me into martial arts in the first place. And I do like some of the prequels as well. Come at me, nerds.
Do you have a favorite documentary in terms of non-fictional storytelling?
I liked a documentary I saw about DMT, the spirit molecule, I believe it was called. That one was a lot of fun. I like a lot of food documentaries too. I think it's important to see where food comes from and how hypocritical I'm being when I buy that chicken that's on sale. So, yeah.
What role does where do you see the future of broadcasting going and content development, video and what have you? Where do you see that going with the internet?
It's all going to the internet, and I believe right now we have a last-ditch effort by the old companies trying to make as much money as they can before they're obsolete, because no one at 18 and under will ever buy a cable package. And I believe there will be no borders either. People just put in whatever VPN they need to access Netflix Germany or Netflix USA or whatever. I believe geo-blocking will become a thing of the past because it kind of is already obsolete. So I think it's going to be really interesting because it's going to be what people want will rise to the top instead of a boardroom of 12 people who aren't funny trying to pick the best comedy, So I think it's a really interesting time. We got to figure out a way to make money off that and then let the art rise to the top.
Where do you see the future of 3D filmmaking going?
I believe 3D filmmaking is a transitional medium. I believe it's just the next step to hologram. That's it. I mean, we're just on the way to hologram. 3D is good. I think it's only been done good a couple times. But yeah, we're just going to hologram, man. Think of it.
What's your favorite outside of mixed martial arts and Thai boxing? I'm assuming actually, what is your favorite combat sport in terms of pure styles as opposed to mixed?
Well, I like mixed martial arts a lot, but yeah, it would be Muay Thai and probably Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Although I love how combat submission wrestling has been represented lately with Josh Barnett, in Metamoris. So yeah, grappling and striking. Let's separate them, but definitely Muay Thai for striking.
What Olympic sports, like amateur sports, which is your favorite to watch and what have you?
Well, for Summer Olympics, I think wrestlers are some of the best athletes in the world, and it's pretty exciting to watch it. I don't see that it's tough to sell that to a crowd who wants something really exciting, like when they're riding on horses and jumping, if you call that a sport or whatever. So it's going to have a tough road ahead of it, but I think they're some of the best athletes in the world, and I love the running. I like old school, fastest man, strongest man, stuff like that. And Winter Olympics is this whole other thing. Like let's see these ski jumpers jump really high and really far and just fly. It's pretty amazing.
How come there's no winter combat sport? I mean, besides hockey with the cross-checking and all that crap. And I'm not knocking hockey, but why isn't there an Olympic ice winter whatever sport or combat sport? Let me rephrase that. Why isn't there a winter combat sport, in your opinion?
Well, mostly because we're both laughing so hard. It seems silly. We've both seen the system of videos where they're training in the snow. I mean, I suppose that's good combat, but I mean, what are you going to do? Fight over your salmon that you just caught ice fishing? Like,
damn right!
It's a tasty salmon, but come on!
Fair enough. Right now, who is the most dominant, popular combat sport artist in all combat sports, in your opinion? Who is number one?
I mean, I think most people go to boxing at this point and say, like, the last fight between Pacquiao and Mayweather, but I'm going to say Ronda Rousey right now is the most dominant and the most popular. She's transcended, all the media, all the normal media, not just the fringe media and the MMA sites. And she's getting major movie roles, and she's destroying people. Technically, she's badass, man.
Rousey versus Correa, Beth Correa. Who do you think is going to win?
I think that'll be a good fight, but ultimately Rousey's going to go home with an arm in her pocket like she normally does.
For real?
I really do believe that, yeah.
I think Correa's going to knock her out. And I love Ronda Rousey, I'm just saying.
I love that, because that's what I want. I want a fight where you don't know they're the best ones. Like I said, you're on the edge of your seat. That's why it's the greatest sport in the world. But Ronda is such a unique athlete because she was the best grappler in the world for a woman in mixed martial arts.
In judo? Or in both?
In anything, but because of her judo base. And what does she do? She works on her striking. You see a lot of pro athletes work on what they're good at because it's comfortable. She went to uncharted waters and decided to work on the stuff and ask herself those tough questions. And now her striking is phenomenal. I want to see her start kicking. Let's make her like undefeatable, which
has she ever kicked in a bout? I don't think. Has she?
Not that I can recall, but if she applied the same like mentality to her judo and her boxing that to Muay Thai, come on.
Woo! Right on. I want you to tell us about that video, Cross Train. This is a music video you put together a few years ago. And the reason why I want to ask, I remember watching that video and listening to the song, and I was like, you know what?
You just gotta believe.
Yeah, I can relate on many levels. And tell us what inspired that. What's the story behind it?
Well, it's funny. I mean, that was a part of my series, Lewis's Race Blog. So I was running races, and doing these comedy training videos leading up to it. I really was training, but I like the comedy, and I like making videos, and I like writing music. And that song in particular, I found I was kind of writing the same style of song over and over. So I searched for inspiration somewhere else, and I wanted to write a different style of song than I normally write. And I actually got the inspiration from Sons of Anarchy, the opening. It has this kind of like angry bluesy kind of riff, and I thought, well, maybe I should do something like that, some southern kind of bluesy thing. So I played around with riffs, and I remember doing it in my basement, having a few beers and rocking that riff and just hitting record. And when that riff happened, I was like, that's it, man, that's it. And the song is pretty simple. It's a simple progression, but it works well. And then the lyrics I would write when I was running, because I find my brain works best when I exercise, because everything else just kind of gets shut off, and I'm able to focus. So I'd be running, and I would think of a funny line, and I would actually start laughing and get out of breath. And the other time I'd write is riding my motorcycle to work. When I ride my motorcycle to work, same thing. I'd go into this Zen state, and the lyrics would kind of just come to me over and over. So I wrote the first riff, and I recorded that. But the rest of it, before I even played through the song once, it was done in my head. And then I was able to just go through it. And except for the guitar solo, which I invented on the fly. And I'm not the world's greatest guitar soloist, so if you look at the files from that, you'll see it's got a few takes, but a few things spliced together. But yeah, and people really liked it, and it was shot at the N1 Thai Boxing Academy, Naren Fiakovsky's boxing or Thai boxing and MMA gym. And people do relate, because you're trying to be an athlete, you want to compete, but there's all these other awesome things as well. Beer, food, yes, and sometimes you could lie to yourself and make yourself lazy, and tell yourself, no, I'll still do good, I could have this beer, I could have this cookie. And that's kind of what that song's about.
How long have you been tell us about you've been involved in combat sports. You train in a few styles, or have trained in a few styles. Can you tell us about how you got involved in these combat sports?
Well, when I was young, growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, I saw a demonstration of some traditional martial arts. It was Kuk Sul Wan. I think it was at a mall or some damn thing. And me and my brother asked my parents to put us in it, and they did. And eventually, it was fun. It was, it was great. But eventually, I grew into an older teenager who was more interested in stealing beer, and you know what I mean. So I kind of dropped out of that. And then later on, it was movies that wanted me to get back involved with martial arts, because I thought Darth Maul was awesome, and I think Bruce Lee is awesome. So I would just watch these, killers pretend to kill on screen, and that made me want, not necessarily to compete or anything, but to be able to do what they do. Flexibility, fitness, all that stuff, and just have the speed, timing. So I tried a bunch of martial arts, and eventually I found a home with combat submission wrestling and Muay Thai. It's kind of where I settled, and I loved it, and been training ever since. Last year and a half off because of injury, but I do plan on getting back to both of them and competing definitely in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submission grappling again.
Now, what's very interesting about you is someone who you practice these different styles, but you're also involved in visual storytelling. You're a video professional, right? Yep. Can you give us an idea? Just tell us what you've worked on as far as video work. Just give us an overview.
Yeah, I've worked in the film and television industry since 1999 after graduating from Algonquin College. Started out doing a lot of on-set stuff, a lot of lighting, some gripping. Got into camera assisting, and then I found editing through more television, through more news stuff, and then from that, editing news transitioned into editing everything else, right? Because I find editing news a little boring, to be honest with you. So I've worked on pretty much the gambit, from films to home and garden channel stuff, and everything really. And then it brought me full circle when I started doing a lot of promos for the N1 Thai Boxing Academy, where I was training. just on local fighters and making highlights for them and kind of commercials for the gym and stuff like that. And, putting two loves together, filmmaking and combat sports. And, it really felt natural and it really felt awesome. And it really let me hone my skills. And eventually, that brought me to work to edit for The Ultimate Fighter.
Now, tell us how that happened.
Well, it was pretty amazing. It was a weird time in my life because I had been hurt and I sustained a pretty bad concussion. So I was in my healing phase of that. And to be perfectly honest with myself, like looking back, I wasn't as healed as I made myself out to be, because when I got a call to edit The Ultimate Fighter, or to be one of the editors on The Ultimate Fighter, I wasn't going to turn that down no matter what. So it was, it was challenging at times. There was definitely some dizzy days and some nauseous days, but yeah, it was. I went into work every day with a huge smile on my face, regardless, because the content I found fascinating. The characters I found amazing, and I love that show. I've seen every season of that show, and coming from combat sports myself, yeah, I found myself in an area where I could be an expert in it.
Now, this is it right here. What because you're in a unique position, right? You're a video professional and also a practitioner of these styles, and that makes you kind of you're in an advantageous situation of understanding what's happening, right? As far as in the fight, in the clinch, on the ground, so on and so forth. How is that an advantage in terms of editing and packaging it? The fact that you know what's happening, as opposed to someone who doesn't know grappling or the sport.
Well, it's interesting when I'm shooting combat sports, for example. I find it intuitive. I don't need to necessarily guess where they're gonna go. I've been there. I know he's gonna defend the Kimura this way and shrimp out this way. So I can adjust in a timely fashion. And same with footwork for striking. I know if he's ducking this way, he's gonna step out, to the left or whatever. Or if he blocks here, he's gonna counter here. So, I don't. It's not like I know everything that every fighter is gonna do, but I definitely have a sense that's intuitive, and I can follow the puck when I'm shooting. And in editing, I can tell that story as well, because particularly the ground game, if you don't know necessarily what's going on, it can look like a couple pretzels, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, but for the people who do know, when I edit something like that, I want to be able to show them, oh, this transition is, watch what he does here, because that's going to get him out of this. Or watch what he does here because he's setting up this. So it educates people who don't know, and the people who do know can really appreciate it. So yeah, it's just, and I'm not the only. I've definitely met professionals, definitely through the internet and stuff, who also train and also shoot or edit combat sports to the highest level. And yeah, they have an advantage as well. I'm definitely not the only one, but it definitely helps you out.
Just in generalities, how would you? What's more challenging, striking or grappling, in terms of capturing and editing and telling the story?
I think grappling is a little more challenging to tell that story, and the reason being, most people have been in a fist fight at one time or another, and they can relate to it. They may not be able to relate to like the highest level of striking, but when someone gets punched in the face, everybody sees it, everybody knows. Whereas grappling, it's a little more, there's some more finesse game and little things happening that most people may not recognize. So it's important to show that, or else it's just going to look, it may look boring to some people. So there's all these little subtleties that you need to show just to tell that story of the fight in grappling.
But Lewis, how do you tell those subtleties, especially when the end user might, like the viewer or whatever, might not, be involved in these sports and might not know what's happening? How do you give us kind of an idea? Let's say you were capturing a grappling match right now. What would you do? And let's say you had that voiceover capability as well, which makes it easy because you have a narrator. Tell us.
Well, it's important to just show people the steps the two combatants are going through. You know what I mean? He's attempting this, he's defending by doing this. And it's not necessarily with voiceover, but showing the proper camera angles and to show those progressions. And you know, when I'm cutting a multi-camera fight, for example, be it I shot it or whoever shot it, you know, to me, in my opinion, there's generally a couple different ways to tell it, but there is one awesome way to edit that fight. And you let the fighters tell you what shots to use. You know what I mean? Like there will be, and where to cut. And that's another important thing, you know? So that the audience is never taken out of the fight. They're always seeing something that keeps them going. You know that tense feeling when you're watching a fight, like, oh my God, go, go, go. You have to keep the audience in that tenseness. Whether it's a slaughter, you know what I mean? Is the fight gonna end right away? Or a comeback story? Or just, you know, two people as hard as they can, you know, nullifying each other. Whatever. The camera shots will tell the story. It's just your idea to put the best ones together.
Is it easier, this might sound obvious, but is it easier from a multicam or a single cam as far as, you know, capturing the intensity and so on? Is it easier editing in post when you have multiple angles or single cam? If so, why?
If it's an entire fight that you are covering, multicam is better. But I mean, you're only as good as the shots, and therefore you're only as good as the shooters, right? So it helps if people have experience shooting fights. But yeah, multicam all day. Single shots are better for, you know, you're building a promo, or you're really capturing the, you know, not necessarily the whole fight, but you know, the battle of one human versus himself, you know, in his eyes. And because that, to me, that's what the fight is. The fight isn't necessarily this person versus his opponent. It's that person versus him or herself all the time. And, you know, during, be it training or fighting, that person is asking themselves tough questions because your mind can be your worst enemy. So it's like, you know, are you good enough to defeat this person? Are you good enough to make it through training? You sprained your thumb the last punch, you know, are you good enough to make it? Maybe you should just quit. It'll say all that stuff. And that story is being told in every training session and in every fight. And I think it's my job to capture that and to tell that story.
Based on what you just said, obviously I think that's a very challenging job, right? Because you're essentially drawing the viewer in, and you know, there's a lot we don't know, right? Because sometimes if someone is, quote, hurt in a fight, the last thing they want to do is show it. What, you know, show that they're injured and so on. When you watch a fight, can you give us an idea of what you look for? Because you're a video professional, and I mention that because you can see something on screen for its technical value, right? Mm-hmm. Or you could see it as a end user or a regular viewer. When you watch a fight that's produced with a multi-cam or whatnot, what do you look for?
When I watch a fight, I am watching 100% as a fan. I am into that fight. I am on the edge of my seat, and I'm loving every second of it. I'm, you know, rooting for the guy I want to win or the girl, and, you know, booing the person I don't like. It's when something technical happens where it takes me out of the fight.
Sorry, so something technical in terms of the fight itself, or the camera?
Or something technical in terms of the production.
Okay.
That takes me out of it, that drives me nuts.
Like, give us examples.
I don't think at any point during a fight you should cut to anything else or have any picture-in-picture or anything else. You have the best form of entertainment. Two humans fighting in a cage or a ring or on a mat or whatever. You don't need anything else. Every story is there. I think someone's fighting in the kitchen there. You hear that? Every story is there in the combatant's eyes. You just have to find it. So, you know, be it a bad edit, a bad cut to a bad camera, and you know, mistakes happen. Christ, I make them all the time. Or cutting to something else besides the fight, to me, that's no. It just takes away, and you're back to your own. You're back to your lazy boy chair, sitting in your living room instead of being like right there in the fight with them.
So, for example, let's say that you're saying if there's a cutaway outside of the fight. So let's say you're cutting away to the coach yelling in the corner while the fight happens. And is that good for reality TV, or is that good for a live event? Or is there a difference between reality TV and live events instead of as far as video storytelling goes?
Okay, first question, is it good for, it's good for nobody, in my opinion.
Really?
Cutting away during?
But let's say, okay, let's say the coach is yelling, or the fighter's mom is in the crowd, and she's going, ape shit, blah blah blah, and I mean, cutting to that to build the emotion. I mean, that's kind of a pro wrestling-esque angle, but you don't see the value in that for live events as well as reality TV.
In my opinion, that is best used for replays, walkouts, stuff like that during the fight, or maybe in between rounds. But during the fight, I want those two guys' eyes locked and you to feel like you're in there with them. That's it. Don't cut to anything that takes me out of the cage at that point, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I've been wrong before, once, maybe.
Okay, so is there a difference between visual storytelling when you're doing a live event vis-a-vis a series, a reality TV series, in terms of principles of storytelling and whatnot? Is there a difference?
The live, I mean, to me, there's no difference in telling the story of the fight. It's just harder to do at a live event, right?
Is that where you depend on the color commentating almost? Is that?
I believe so, yeah. But also good production staff. When you watch a live event and it's got good production, you won't notice it. You won't even notice it. You're just involved in it. You're submerged in it. And yeah, I mean, the UFC is literally the top of the food chain at that. Their production's amazing. Their promos are amazing. Their announcer is amazing. Their color commentary is fantastic. And that's everyone. Their analysts are amazing. They are the cream of the crop, and most editors, shooters, all people doing any promos, be it for amateur or pro, we're all dipping into what the UFC has done because, they push the boundaries, particularly in their countdown series and their promos. So we all steal from that.
So they've really established what you're saying, the foundation almost, kind of how to tell these stories?
100%. 100%. Yeah, they are the standard that I look to anyway. And I watch every promotion that I can in fighting, but the UFC is the best one.
What significant role did reality TV and visual storytelling, behind the scene content, do you think it played a role in marketing and selling mixed martial art as a sport to like the North American market and audience?
I do. I mean, the first Ultimate Fighter, after Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner punched each other in the head for 15 minutes straight, everybody loved it. And what was really interesting about that is I went to a local bar to watch the pay-per-view of Randy and Chuck the Iceman, the coaches. And as I was walking in, there was an old lady, she must have been in her 60s, asking the hostess, "Are you going to show the coaches fight each other?" Wow. And that really resonated. Like, wow, you've hit every demographic with this. So yeah, that came a long way for North Americans, because I think North Americans used to look at it as kind of a brutal thing, and particularly with UFC 1, it was brutal. That was kind of the point. But overseas, Japan's been doing this for a long time. So only a matter of time before it came here.
So Lewis, when you're capturing two people fighting, and you're editing, and it's multicam, you've got multiple angles and points of views, which point of view, if all cameras are facing the action, which point of view to you is the one, the go-to as far as which point of view is the more valuable?
Well, one point of view will show the action that's happening in that scene better than others, be it a transition, a strike, a counter, whatever, and it'll play well with the next shot and the shot previous. So you really have to judge on that. But to me, it's storytelling, and it's the shot that shows the fighter's body language, his eye language, and the battles he's fighting with himself. So that tends to be the one I choose, and it's television, so it's about feeling and making the viewer feel. So it's not about staying wide or being close up. It's whatever's telling the story of that fighter and making the viewer at home go, oh my God, he's going to win. Oh my God, he's going to lose. Oh my God, how's he going to get out of this? Oh my God, it looks like it's over. Oh my God, he's coming back. It's stuff like that. It's telling that story. So without feeling, it's just a bunch of shots cut together. And you can still cut a fight together like that, and you'll still see the whole fight. But if the audience isn't feeling it, so I look for that body language. I look for that in the eyes, that little like deep breath after getting hit. You know what I mean? Little things like that. The fake smile after getting hit. Oh. You know, things that tell the man versus man or woman versus woman story.
Do you actually look for that detail in when you're editing? Are you that attentive? And I know it sounds stupid to ask, but that's very detailed.
When I edit something, if I don't feel anything, I hate it and I'm embarrassed by it. So for me, in the sport I love, when I'm shooting or editing, you know, combat sports, boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, judo, whatever, it needs to get me fired up. It needs to make me happy. It needs to make me sad. All those things. It needs to take me on a journey. And then I know the audience will go on that journey with me. So yeah, I really do look for all those things.
Comparatively speaking to a fight sequence in a fictional film, how does it differ philosophically from what you just said right there? How does storytelling for real a sporting event, how does that differ in terms of editing from a fictional fight with two people on screen beating the crap out of each other? Yeah.
Well, in fictional fight scenes, there's a lot of different types. There's the real over-the-top type, which I love, you know what I mean? Like, let's get some crazy action moves, some flips, some spin kicks, some over-the-top things. But you can also put reality into that. And when I do fake fighting scenes, I like to do that as well. So let's not ignore the ground game. It can still be dynamic and explosive and, you know, a lot of movement. But yeah, it's the same storytelling. You're going to have, you know, your protagonist likely, you know, go up against something he shouldn't win, start losing, come back, you know, and really win. So yeah, it is the same story, but obviously a real fight tugs on the heartstrings a lot more, in my opinion.
So on that note, when it tugs on the heartstrings, what are they? What generally speaking, what are those heartstrings in terms of, yeah, what are they?
Well, it's every emotion that happens in a fight. Like I said, it's someone overcoming something. It's someone losing really badly. It's someone being humiliated. Combat sports are the toughest sports in the world because literally everything is on the line. These fighters go out there and they could be humiliated. They could be made fun of on the internet for the next till they die. They could be in somebody else's highlight reel, which is just debilitating, right? I'm in other people's highlight reels in jiu-jitsu competition. You can find it on YouTube. I'm not proud of it, but it did make me a better person. And that's kind of the pathos you evoke for the character, right? So it's the same thing. All those emotions, that's what you're looking for in a fight sequence.
When you're building a fight sequence, are there ways to cheat and make someone look cheat in terms of technically in post with editing? Are there ways to make them look better in terms of their ability, and or worse? Are there ways from your experience?
You can do anything you want in the visual media. A good shooter editor, you can tell whatever story you want to tell. In the case of with fighting, I like to tell the story that is actually being told because it is the best story. There's no fictional story is going to beat that. You know, two combatants fighting each other, win, lose, a good battle, a humiliation, you know, crushing defeat, all that. Those are the best stories to me. So nothing fiction. Absolutely, you can change it. You can do whatever you want. You can make someone look better or worse. But the real story is legitimately the best story, and ultimately, I'm going to tell the best story.
Just recently, there was an MMA fight, a pay-per-view. I think it was free on some channel that I won't mention. It was, well, whatever. It was between Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice. I don't know if you've seen that fight, but if you don't mind, I'd like to get your opinion on that fight. What did you think?
It was an interesting fight. I found it interesting that those guys were headlining. I mean, Ken Shamrock's, he's done enough to be a headliner, but he is over the hill. I think at the time of that fight, he was 864 years old, which is pretty damn old. Kimbo Slice, again, all the respect in the world. I love Kimbo Slice. I thought he was fantastic on The Ultimate Fighter. He's a great guy with great character, and he's a hard worker. Was that the best fight? No, it wasn't. Did it look fake? It kind of looked fake. Do I think it was fake? I'm leaning towards no, because I think Ken got knocked out at the end. And as someone who's dealt with brain injuries, nobody wants to fake that. That was a legitimate hit. Ken looked messed up. Kimbo hits hard. The choke was weird. It looked like Ken should have been able to finish it, but I don't know what's going on in Ken's head at that moment. Like, he was reefing on Kimbo's neck. Maybe he was very tired. You know, he was, like I said, he was 800 years old at the time. He was tired 200 years ago. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
That's an interesting answer. It's a good answer, and it's you're being diplomatic and professional. Is it fair to say?
That is my legitimate answer. Do I think it could? There are works. Of course there are works that happen. And for those that don't know, a work is a fake fight where it's agreed upon by the combatants who's going to win and who's going to lose for usually financial benefit. And like I said, it would be easy to call it that if it wasn't for the knockout after, which is why I call it just a bad fight. And look, I respect anyone who makes that walk to the cage, to the mat, to the ring, so I'm not harping on them that way. But for a main event, I don't think it was main event quality. You know what I mean? I think that company could have done better.
Fair enough. Just to follow up on that, so there's a lot of storytelling in all combat sports, right? There's an entire industry that's storytelling, which is pro wrestling, and you know, everyone knows it's work. It's a work. It's not the shoot. It's not for real, whatever. But there's a lot of drama and there's a lot of entertainment. Where do you think, because the genres now, the genres in the real fighting, quote-unquote, mixed martial arts, and the fake fighting, quote-unquote, professional wrestling, when you watch the promos, when you watch the actual the fights, can you draw a line between pro wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, and MMA? Can you, or actually, let's simplify, can you draw a line between pro wrestling and MMA in the United States?
I can draw a very big line between those two. I think the last time I watched pro wrestling, I was never into it, but the kids in my neighborhood were.
Louis, sorry, let me rephrase that. In terms of like packaging a product,
okay.
In terms of, you know, the promos and all, you know, the feuds, right? Like even with Kimbo and Shamrock, I mean, it drew me in because Shamrock is a pro wrestler. Originally, he started, you know what I mean? He started first as a pro wrestler. Maybe people don't know that, but like the question is, as a video professional who knows visual storytelling, can you tell the difference? Is there a difference between how pro wrestling is packaged and vis-a-vis mixed martial arts?
I'm not terribly familiar with pro wrestling, but I'll tell you this: it's all storytelling, right? It's all protagonist and antagonist. It's all overcoming. It's all the same stories, man versus man, woman versus woman. So yeah, it's the same type of storytelling. That's about it, really.
Fair enough. So you're doing a lot of work here in Ottawa, Gatineau area with promos for local fighters, be it mixed martial arts, kickboxers, combat athletes. What do you find is the most challenging aspect of interviewing and capturing these individuals? What do you find is the commonality as far as a challenge between dealing with these athletes?
Well, there's a couple challenges. The first one is when you want to capture visuals of that fighter and interviews of that fighter, you want them during a fight camp. You want them when they're battling their own inner demons. They're battling, making weight, trying to get their cardio up. Their coaches are putting them through the ringer, shark tanks, just them battling themselves and overcoming it. And that can be hard to do. Like, it can be hard to get inside with a fighter like that. There's been a few fighters who have really granted me access for that, and there's been some fighters who said they were going to grant me access, but when it came time to do it, they just kind of shut it down. So that is a big hurdle, but it pays dividends when you can get in there, because not only does it humanize fighters for the general public, because the general public are going to be the ones who are ultimately, giving you your paycheck at the end of the day. So it makes you relatable to them, but it also doesn't just humanize you, it super humanizes you. It makes you like, oh my God, I wouldn't have been able to get beyond that, but they are. These people are amazing. That type of thing, right? The other challenge is finances. A lot of up-and-coming, first of all, amateur fighters have no money, zero money. I like to work for money.
Fair enough.
I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Right.
Pro fighters, before they get their big break, generally aren't making a lot of money either. But I will say this, and we're going to keep this between you and me, and all the listeners. I would do every fight promo for free, because I love it. I love telling the stories of fighters, and I really do feel like I am doing my part to bring combat sports to more audiences, to more mainstream audiences, and I like that. It's the sport I love, and I want it to flourish. So, and if I'm shooting and editing fight stuff all day, I got a big smile on my face. So.
Do you think these fighters, amateur or pro or whatever, do you think they know the value of being able to communicate in front of a camera from a communication and marketing point of view? When you're dealing with a fighter who is easy to deal with when it comes to being open to being interviewed and being open to the camera and the magic, what does that do to that person? Whether that person is an amateur or a pro fighter, what have you. What is the benefit there?
Well, the reality of the fight business is it's all marketing. If you do not market yourself, and if the company you're fighting for doesn't market itself, you will have nowhere to fight, and no one will watch you fight. What are you going to do, fight in back alleys? So it is so important. And no, not every fighter realizes it, and not every fighter likes to do that kind of thing.
But how come? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, telling your... Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Like, please elaborate. Like, why don't they see the value in it?
It can be a nuisance. You look at even Conor McGregor right now, leading up to his big fight with Chad Mendes, which was supposed to be Jose Aldo. You could tell he's getting a bit wary of doing all the media stuff, right? But he does understand the value of it, but even he's getting wary. So it can be an inconvenience, and it lets people in, which is really hard to do. Now, I've heard fighters say, look, I'm just here to fight. come watch me fight. I don't need to do any of that. In my opinion, they are 100% wrong. Sell yourself, Sponsorship. And not only that, make the big leagues take notice. Make you go somewhere. Make other people take notice. Make people care about watching you. If they care about you and go to watch you, they will invest in you. They will buy your ticket. They will buy your t-shirt. They will buy your headband. They will buy your, whatever. Your Motley Crue back patch. Okay, maybe not a Motley Crue back patch, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Yeah.
Is there a line where you feel fighters and professional combat sports athletes have to become characters in order to sell their brand and sell their names? Like, do you think there's a lot of that going on, like in bordering sports entertainment?
I don't think they have to become characters. It does work. Chael Sonnen's a great example. He became a character. It worked awesome for him. Some people would argue it got him title shots when it shouldn't have. Conor McGregor's... You can argue Conor both ways. Yes, he's a character, but he backs up everything he says he's going to do, and he keeps knocking people out. So I don't think you have to become character. I think you have to let people in and let them see you for whatever that is. If you're over the top, if you're vulnerable, let people in and they will care about you. If you got some demons, we see that all the time on the countdown shows, the Ultimate Fighter shows. People kind of let out their demons, and it humanizes them, and makes people love them, care about whether they win or lose, or hate them, and pay money to see them get beat up. So yeah, it's a business decision, but you don't have to be a character.
So is the overarching argument to humanize and to be relatable?
Look, you're selling yourself. So yeah, you're either the hero, the protagonist, or someone who has a big challenge in front of them, So yeah, humanize it. Let people in. Let people see, and they'll love you for it.
Where do you see the future of visual storytelling for combat sports? At this rate, where do you see it going? I'm putting you on the spot. Do you think it's starting to look a lot like sports entertainment?
Well, when you say sports entertainment, I believe you mean wrestling.
Yeah, pro wrestling and how stories are told in that medium. And it's not a bad thing, because it makes money, right? I mean, it's a business. So.
There are characters who are going to play that aspect of it and have it work for them, and that's fine. But you have other characters too, like George St. Pierre. Everybody wanted to watch George fight. And I honestly believe it was not only because he was the best in the world, but he was a vulnerable guy. He would admit when he was scared. He would admit when, he had an injury or a week, or he would say, like, fear drives me. That's a big thing. And that makes people relate to him. Cowboy Cerrone is another one. He had a Q&A and he talked about pre-fight jitters. And he says he's, doing everything including messing his pants. You know what I mean? And that's like, really? This guy's a killer. But he's so nervous and so scared before a fight. Yeah, let people in, humanize it. You don't have to be a character. That's my point. Is it sports entertainment? It doesn't have to be. It can be. I think it's going to be the whole spectrum.
Where do you see the future of web series going? You're involved in a few web series. Can you tell us about your web series and where you see web series going in terms of pitching stories and so on to broadcasters, etc. and so on?
Well, I mean, I do web series mostly because I'm a freelancer, and sometimes you end up with no work or a little break, and I don't like not being busy. I need to be busy, and I love being creative. So I'm always writing. I always have something on the back burner, and I always want to go produce it. As a matter of fact, sometimes when I'm working and I'm very busy, I'm like, I wish I had more time for my web series. And I don't, my weakness is, I don't really care to pitch them. I don't care. I'm just going to put them on the internet, and they're going to have call it organic or grassroots following. Perfect, whatever, enjoy it. It's more of the process for me to say I've done it, I've written something, I've directed something, shot something, acted in something, scored something, edited something, and I always have that final product to point to and say, I've really accomplished something. You know what I mean? I did this from start to finish. Anyway, that's the long answer. That is the future. I really do believe, in pitching things right now, a lot of people are looking for a finished pilot instead of a one-pager these days, or a good idea, because it's cheap to do. Everyone has the equipment, whether they know or not. You can shoot something on your iPhone and make it good. Professionals don't want to hear that, but you can do that.
Why don't they want to hear that?
Because people are afraid of people taking the jobs away from them. And that won't necessarily happen, but you can tell. It's all about storytelling. And you can tell a good story with your high 8 camera, with your VHS thing from 1981, with your, Sony F55, which is the most, a fantastic camera, or your iPad. It's all about storytelling and giving people what they want.
What are you pitching anything these days? Can you tell us what you can or cannot pitch? You don't have to tell us.
Of course, I'll tell you. I'm I'm working with my good friend and hilarious guy Ben Bulldog on a sitcom. It's called Committed. We've written the first draft of the script, and now we're writing the second draft and jamming all the comedy in, and we're going to be pitching it and seeing what we can do. And this is an interesting thing because this is the first project that I've decided not to try and produce myself. I've decided, hey, why don't I try and sell one instead of trying to produce it myself?
Why is that?
I think this requires a better actor than me.
Dude, you're the best actor I know. God damn it!
I agree with that, but I would like to go through the process of pitching something to try and sell it, just to learn more about it. I've done it a couple times and gotten pretty far in the process, but I really want to try it in today's digital age and just grow as a producer, pitcher, writer. I want to continue to grow, man. Come on.
How has the landscape of broadcasting, storytelling, and all that good stuff, filmmaking, whatever you want to call it, how has that changed right now? And is it an opportunity for more emerging artists, or is it a challenge? What is the current state, Louis, of storytelling from your point of view right now?
Well, a lot of people are telling me it's a big challenge right now, and it's the hardest time it's ever been, particularly in Canada, to get something on the air. However, I love the current state because we have things like web series, we have things like Netflix, we have crowdsourcing, we have people demanding what they want. We have series being brought back because executives decided it wasn't good enough, but the people are saying, no, we want to pay for this, which is fascinating to me. So again, art will rise to the top. It's just a way of figuring out the new landscape. Who makes money off it? How do you get stuff on the air? And we've seen channels like HBO and Netflix pick up web series, which blows my little mind. I love it. It's a very exciting time to be a content creator, and to me, it's nothing but positives.
Perfect. Do you have any last points, any messages, any words of advice?
I guess everyone's circumstances are different, but if I had any advice, and I never want to give advice to anyone. I don't know. It's kind of not my thing, but never take a break. That's my thing. You always, and I've done it, and I've thought, well, I'll just take a year off from this. I'll just do that. Life is short. Do things. Never take breaks. Life's about what you do. And the other thing I'll leave our viewers with, or our listeners, pardon me, with, is our host, Garmamie, is also, really into combat sports. And I will say, we have grappled before, and he schooled me and he humiliated me and had his way with me. And I'm a lot better grappler now, so I hope to have a rematch one day. Thank you, Garmamie.
I look forward to the rematch, and thank you for answering all these questions. And I look forward to interviewing you again.
Hey, drinking beer and talking about myself, what can be better?
There you go. Make sure you check out Louis's videos. You can find the link to his YouTube video channel in this episode's show description. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Garmamie. For more information, visit garmamie.com. That's GARMAMIE.com. GARMAMIE.com.